We're broadcasting live from Adesawe here in Accra. Hello, good evening, and welcome to News 360. Live on TV3, my name is Pa Kwesiasare.
My name is Solis Rose Quarte. Tonight,
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by...
Now, the Asante Achim North District Security Council orders a shoot and kill directive to rid the area of cattle and nomadic herdsmen.
Also ahead of the bulletin, a private individual breaks and invades the residence of a High Court judge claiming ownership of the property.
The president is talking about rule of law and he means what he's saying. Probably this will be a test case.
Also in the bulletin, members of Parliament for Aswase and North Tongu to testify before Parliament's Cash for Seats ad hoc committee.
Still ahead in the bulletin, traders are back to the streets a day after the Accra Metropolitan Assembly conducted massive decongestion exercise in the capital.
And on the international front, North and South Korea agreed to hold military talks to diffuse border tension.
We've got the very latest details of this and many more stories coming up in the next 60 minutes. Meanwhile, you're free to join us with your views, comments and suggestions on any of our top stories this hour. Visit any of our social media pages on Facebook and on Twitter. The Asante Achim North District Security Council has ordered a shoot and kill policy as a means of getting rid of cattle of nomadic herdsmen in the area to enforce a 2012 High Court ruling. Well, after an emergency district security council meeting, the district chief executive for the area, Francis Otibuatin, hinted that every cattle would be shot if the herdsmen do not comply with evacuation directives.
4 security personnel sustained gunshot wounds during an exchange of fire between Operation Cow-Leg Task Force and some Fulani herdsmen at Agogo yesterday. 3 of the injured personnel were transferred to the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital after being stabilized at the Agogo Presbyterian Hospital. Nurse in charge of the Accident and Emergency Unit of Agogo Presbyterian Hospital, Emmanuel Asante, said one of the injured was treated and discharged last night. The shooting incident led to an emergency DISEC meeting headed by the District Chief Executive for Asante Achim North. After the meeting, the DCE, Francis Otibuatin, said they have resolved to embark on total evacuation of cattle in the area.
The DISEC have resolved that what we are doing is total evacuation. We are not leaving any cattle on the land. And actually, the first command was defective because the first command was that go and sack or flush the animals from the land. But they were not ordered to kill animals or also to kill the Fulanis. But now that the Fulanis are firing back, what should we do? We have to sit down and restructure the first order.
The Member of Parliament for Asante Achim North, Andy Appiah-Kubi, said they have now ordered farmers not to go to their farms for their own safety.
Now that the military came and the military they have also been attacked, then there's a presumption of unsafety within this environment. So our advice is for them to stop going to farm for the time being until the situation normalizes.
Meanwhile, the Agogo District Police Commander, ASP Samuel Kojo Ezubu, has been replaced with ASP Joe Appiah for allegedly siding with the Fulani herdsmen. ASP Kojo Ezubu was accused of lack of commitment towards the fight against evacuation of the cattle. Mr. Appiah-Kubi said they do not have confidence in the outgoing police commander.
We are sure that we have not received the best of service from him, and therefore we are not confident that he will be able to handle security in this community.
Farmers at Asante Achim Agogo and its environs have for the past 25 years accused herdsmen for allowing their cattle to graze and destroy farmlands, which are their only source of livelihood. The failure to deal with the situation has led to consistent clashes between the indigents and the herdsmen, resulting in deaths from both sides.
Well, news just in indicates that members of the Ashanti Regional Security Council will be visiting Agogo to engage key interest groups, including the nomadic herdsmen and the leaders of the Agogo area. Well, this is just after a Regional Security Council meeting in the Ashanti region. The chairman of the council, Simon Osei-Mensah, has been speaking to TV3.
We don't want to do it in a rush too much because, you know, if you take Asante Akyem North, it shares boundary with Sechira Franprince, with Kumawu. If you don't think, because the court ruling says they must be moved away or out of that enclave, which enclave is Asante Akyem North District. You move them there, they go to, let's say, Sechira Kumawu, or they move to Sechira Franprince, or they move to Mampong. It means that we are only moving the problem from one district to the other. That is why we want to look at the evacuation plan and take the possible initiative that will ensure that we move them and solve the problem once and for all, and the problem doesn't become a perennial problem.
Well, as you may be aware, at least a dozen people were killed over the weekend in an apparent tit-for-tat clashes between farmers and cattle herders in central Nigeria. Back here in Ghana, we know this is also a developing story. I've just been joined in the studio by Adam Bona, who's a security analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for your time, and good to have you in the studio. So the District Security Council has given a straightforward directive to shoot and kill cattle of herdsmen. Is that the best way to resolve this crisis?
Yeah, good evening, and good evening to your cherished viewers. I think condolences to those who might have lost family members, and we are told, we have 2 soldiers who have been shot and a police officer who are in critical condition, I think a few days back. The directive as issued by the, district, the DISEC, within the Agogo area, it's not how this issue should be resolved. I think what we have failed to do over the years is to pass probably a ranching law. We don't have it. This, cattle you are talking about are owned by Ghanaians. They are not owned by people coming from neighboring countries largely. And so if you say you are going to evacuate, why are you evacuating them to? It means you are virtually just moving the trouble from one spot to the other. So I'm happy to hear what the regional minister said by saying we don't want to move the trouble from Agogo to, the neighboring, district or towns, because then we'll be just moving, pushing the trouble onto that place. Rather, they should have cool heads, see how this issue can be resolved, within this short period, and in moving forward. Let's, we have our MPs. I mean, we have Parliament reconverging for, what do you call it, this seat for whatever, cash. So what is preventing them from formulating a policy or a law that would say now these animals should be in ranches? What is preventing them from doing that? It's good to hear you talk about
looking at a way forward to addressing this challenge, because it's been a recurrent matter over the years. Successive governments have virtually scratched the surface of the matter. What do you think we exactly need to do to tackle this issue?
What we need to do is to, first of all, we need to know who even owns this animals.
They're Fulani people.
I mean, listen, this Fulani,
they're Fulani people as well.
Please, because the moment we begin to pick on certain, Fulani people are, people who belong to a certain, probably nationality, to a certain tribe of a sort. All herdsmen are not Fulani people. Right. That's one thing we have to understand. And so what I'm basically trying to say is that the reason why, are you aware of the court ruling, court ruling in the Ashanti region that said, what do you call it, they should be evacuated? The reason why this policy couldn't work was because instead of the court asking, how do we call it, the police command to probably work together and get it was passed on to the regional coordinating council. And most of these cattle owners are some of our policymakers, some of our, policymakers and some of our leaders. And so it becomes very difficult for these same people to, do what is expected. And so if you ask, what haven't we done? What are we doing? We haven't done much. We haven't done much because then it's almost like we are beating the drums and we decide to dance according to the way we want it. And I mean, I've heard, fortunately, we have the Interior Minister in the Ashanti region who is saying this is, I mean, trying to come up with ways and means to deal with it in the short term.
The allegations that some policemen are even culpable in this activity because over the period we've had Fulani people or people who own cattle essentially get into the ranks, infiltrate the ranks, you know, of the police service, offer bribes, and so it makes it difficult for them to actually tackle this matter head on. Is there a way of addressing that one as well?
You know, with that allegation, I'm a bit suspicious. I mean, I wouldn't. Who do we believe? Because here we have DISEC, you know, the district chief executive is in charge of DISEC.
Well, the evidence is that the commander has been sacked.
He's been transferred. He's been moved.
Right.
I mean, that's what I mean. And so, where is the evidence? I would have wished that the evidence we have would, you know, probably suggest that this person did A, B, C. But at the moment, it's all speculation that we suspect he's in bed with the Fulani headsman, he's in bed with this, you know,
so this particular challenge is not peculiar to Ghana. I just hinted at the Nigeria situation. No. So, in your view, in your expert opinion, the shoot and kill policy is not the right way.
It's not the right way. Nigerians, I mean, I'm sure you know we have, you know, herdsmen from the Sokoto, Kaduna area, moving all the way to the Agogo area. I'm sure you know. And so it's something that probably the West African leaders, the sub-region should look at, because we have some also coming from the Niger area, from the top coming from the south, Nigeria also going in. And so my thing is that this issue, shoot and kill, is never, I mean, there has never been any situation where violence, I mean, against another violence has resolved issues amicably. And so I would have wished that cool heads would reign so that at the end of the day, the needless deaths, you know, we are putting policemen, military officers into the bush to go and fight this cattle, this herdsmen, and they are not protected. We are told, unfortunately, some soldiers were shot in the throat, some were shot in, policemen have been shot in the head. You can't send them there and say, go and fight these people when they don't have the rights, you know, body armor.
I've got to say a big thank you to you. Adam Bona is a security analyst helping us to delve deeper into one of our top stories tonight. Two other stories now, and we go to Parliament, where Member of Parliament for Asawase Muntaka Mubarak and the Member of Parliament for Norton Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa will be appearing before the Ad Hoc Investigative Committee on Thursday. The committee, which begins a public sitting on Thursday with clear terms of reference, says it is open to written submissions or personal testimonies from persons linked to the scandal and the public.
On Friday, January 5, the Speaker of Parliament granted the minority's wish of getting the Trade Ministry's seat for cash scandal investigated. A 5-member ad hoc committee made up of 3 majority members and 2 from the minority was constituted. What the House could not agree on was the terms of reference. The spokesperson of the committee, Yaoboabia Samoa, in an exclusive interview with TV3, said all is set now for the first sitting on Thursday.
We've established 3 straightforward things. One is the terms of reference. We are going to investigate whether or not the allegation that the ministry levied and collected monies is true or not. If they did collect monies, how those monies were collected, where the monies were kept, and how the monies were dispersed. Then the third thing is to look at whether or not any infractions of the law occurred.
All persons linked to the scandal, according to him, would be heard publicly unless otherwise requested.
The reason we are sitting in public is that issues of integrity and credibility matter. Too often, the initial message that is put out in the public domain appears to dominate the thinking of people. So when you come back from a finding and then you say otherwise, then there's some amount of disbelief, if I may put it very bluntly.
He was optimistic the committee would meet the 24th January deadline, barring any undue delay in accessing the needed information.
Let's move on to other stories. And the Association of Magistrates and Judges of Ghana is demanding an explanation from the Works and Housing Ministry on why it authorized the invasion of the residence of a High Court judge at cantonment in Accra. A private individual forced his way through the wall, claiming to be the new owner of the property.
This property has been in the possession of the judiciary for a minimum of 20 years.
The invasion of the private residence of the High Court judge occurred in the early hours of Monday, January 9. His wall was pulled down to enable the developer, Messrs. Ofosuhene Ajay, get access to the house. The entrance was also blocked with a heap of sand. Gravel poured onto the compound for supposed commencement of construction work by the developer. The developer made documents available to the judge from the Ministry of Works and Housing, indicating he is the new owner of the property. The document, cited by TV3 and signed on behalf of the minister by the acting director of the Works and Housing Ministry, indicated the ministry has reviewed a petition sent by Messrs. Ofosuhene Ajay for approval of a petition to the right of entry to the cantonment residential area infilling scheme plot 17. The letter stated the right of entry onto the property had been granted since July 2008 under the ministry's redevelopment scheme. The Association of Magistrates and Judges is unhappy with the development.
Clearly, it is unlawful. We can't imagine something happening just after we celebrated 25 years of, what do you call it? Yes, what we call multi-party government and trying to solidify it. We just can't imagine that something can happen just a day or two after. That shows the mindset of some people.
Its president, Justice Victor Ofoe, is demanding immediate reversal of the decision.
They believe that they have some people behind them and therefore they can do whatever they like anywhere. My information is that the judge complained and he was as if, well, I don't care whether you are a judge or not. I have been given the place, so I'm coming for it. We think that the insecurity of judges is coming too clear for everybody to see. Yes. Of course, if there were a policeman here on duty, I don't think that the man would have done what he did.
Justice Victor Ofoe maintained it is a test case for the president to resolve.
If you are doing it to people in the village, why don't you do it to somebody who claims that he knows everybody in Ghana? I believe the president is talking about rule of law, and he means what he's saying. Probably this will be a test case. The president definitely will have heard what is going on because the minister has heard of it.
The Ministry of Works and Housing and the private developer are yet to respond to the issue.
In other news, confusion about the payment of TV license still lingers on. Drivers who have installed television sets in their vehicles say they will resist the payment of such license.
The recent talk of TV license by the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation has received mixed reaction from the public. A television license is a payment required in many countries for the reception of television broadcasts or the possession of a television set.
We are at a new plant station here in Accra, and one can easily get a bus to any parts of the country. But in these buses here, one thing is clear. TV sets are available in almost all the buses, but are the drivers ready to pay for TV license?
Ours is not a TV. We use pen drives.
We are TV, a DVD, a screen. We program now in a bimaso.
This is not a TV. It is a DVD.
What's it? A TV angasa.
TV angasa.
I don't know much idea.
There be no there. So we use pen drive or can. We go have no man open film. Busy penyum. Maybe I better TV. Maybe I no more here program for food. Come pen.
Most passengers prefer movies to the TV programs. I am not ready to pay any TV license.
And it's a budget TV license, no. Oh, you ready to say obey your TV license in there?
Madam, I ready, mum.
Atakwabena is a long-distance driver, and he, unlike other drivers, is able to tune in to watch other TV channels. But he says any attempt to collect TV license from them will be unfair.
TV ankasa.
Into what you ready to say, who bet you a TV license there?
TV license need and come to and who they are man they are.
If I know what the fees will be used for, I will pay.
Now where you are, Minister be an MPB budget, not as any bottom, assemblyman be budget. Nobody. The young fast will be a basso.
Na insurance, road certificate, license most sano. TV license as I can.
We have other insurances to pay. As for TV sets installed in our buses, we can't pay for any license.
Most
of the drivers the news team spoke to were not in support of the TV license, with others calling for education on the collection.
Traders are back to the streets a day after the Accra Metropolitan Assembly commenced decongestion of the capital. In some areas, the traders were going about their business in the full glare of the Assembly's task force, now who've been mandated to prevent the traders from getting back onto the streets.
It is 10 a.m. Tuesday here at Makola. The usual human traffic, which is a regular feature, is no longer here. This is as a result of yesterday's decongestion exercise by the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. However, there are still few traders sharing the pavement with pedestrians. Some forcefully resisting the presence of the Assembly's task force to settle on the pavement. Vehicles were still parked along the road, a situation which the mayor cautioned the drivers against.
The AMA takes levy from us daily, so why won't they allow us to park here?
The story was no different at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle. This brought the issue of availability of the various market centers to accommodate these hawkers. At the hawkers market at Odona, it was observed most of the shops had been closed.
But the thing is, outside.
At the least attempt to give away these shops out for rent, the owner will appear. Most of the owners are hawking on the streets.
Roadside. Still shirts needed Gladys
Akole was present during the AMS demolition exercise, but she's back. She admitted having a shed inside the market, but does not ply her trade there. To confirm, she led the news team to the shop, which she had rented for 2 years and had paid 360 cedis. She explained most of the empty sheds belong to her friends, who equally sell on the streets.
15 cedis a month, 2 years advance.
It's because business is good outside.
But when you say abontin so ba ujina wo ton ne ma no so no etiamra.
I know it's against the law.
This is not the first time such exercise had been conducted. This goes far beyond former Mayor Alfredo Kuvandapoe's exercise 2 years ago, where the red line policy was introduced. Former Mayor Stanley Ni Ajiri Blankson also conducted a similar exercise, but the situation did not change.
You're still watching News 360. We have more news for you after this. Stay with us.
A very good evening to you, and thanks for staying with us on News 360. Time now for business with me, Nanikia Mensah Brampa. Banking consultant Dr. Richmond Ituahene is calling on the governor of the Bank of Ghana to ensure the implementation of Basel Core 3 principle, which requires a proper and fit test of those who apply for banking license. Now, he said when this is done diligently, it will ensure a vibrant and profitable banking sector.
Since 2009, Ghana's banking sector has been classified as being in crisis. This is because of its non-performing assets averagely exceeding 10%. According to the BOG, the November 2017 position of non-performing assets was 21.6%. So for every 100 cedis, 21 cedis goes to the drain. Similarly, return on equity after tax of the banking sector has been declining over the years. In 2014, this stood at 33.3%. In 2015, 26.5%. In 2016, 20.2%. And in 2017, 14.4%. Banking consultant Dr. Richmond Ituahene says the current license regime compounds to the problems of the banking sector.
We have been over-licensed from 2000. We had 16 banks. As last year, we had about 35 banks. Non-banking sector, savings and loans, 37. Microfinance, 541. As against in 2090, all in the aim of financial inclusion. However, people who have bank accounts still remain less than 30% of the whole population.
He said the raising of the minimum capital requirement to 400 million cedis as a means of reducing the number of banks in the sector is not enough.
Capital alone does not solve problems that we have. We have serious, weak corporate governance practices. And in addition, weak and inadequate regulation and enforcement. Non-compliance all over the place by the banks. And ineptitude managing boards. Inefficient. All these things would have been encapsulated into a good corporate governance practices.
He called on the governor to ensure the implementation of Basel Core 3 Principle 2006, which will ensure that banking license is only given to people who are fit and trustworthy.
Other than that, you give them the license, they go and do something else. And in this jurisdiction, people don't go to prison for that. I hope that the Special Prosecutor Office will be working in tandem with Bank of Ghana so that all those who have caused the demise of banks, the 2 banks that were closed, must be brought to book. We shouldn't be glorifying mediocrity.
The Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, Duncan Amwa, has proposed an increase in tariffs on marine gas oil to stop diversion of the product. Now, he was reacting to the announced suspension of the sale of marine gas oil to ocean vessels leaving the country by the National Petroleum Authority. It will be recalled investigations by the NPA revealed some operators steal marine gas oil and sell to ocean vessels, causing government to lose about 900 million cedis.
We have, in collaboration again with the Ministry of Finance, proposed the imposition of taxes, levies and margin on all marine gas oil to discourage the criminal elements from distorting the market.
Reacting to this decision by the NPA, COPEC's Duncan Amwa said the suspension will put players out of business, considering low profits on the product.
In order to forestall any diversions, what you would need to do will be to raise the tariffs so that MGO would now sell almost the same as gas oil would sell. That way, if a person wants to divert, they're still paying taxes on them anyway. And whatever happens, I'm sure the industry itself will be happy if the tariffs were rather raised as opposed to having zero tariffs that allow people to want to consider the economic gains they will get if they divert.
Marine gas oil is a petroleum product used for vessels with the lowest tariff rate of 7 Ghana cedis per gallon compared to other petroleum products like diesel. And talking about Nanado's 1 year in government in terms of the economy, senior economics lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Eric Osei-Sibe, says the NPP government has returned Ghana to a robust economic growth in the first year of the Akufo-Addo administration, despite the huge challenges it inherited. He said through prudent management of the economy, the government has almost met all of its targets. However, there's more that can be done.
The Akufo-Addo-led administration has chalked a number of successes in its economic transformation agenda, inheriting a 3.6% GDP growth in 2016. GDP for 2017 shot up to 7.9%, up from the estimated target of 6.3%. Overall budget deficit on cash basis, which stood at 8.7% at 2016, ended 2017 at 4.5%. Inflation has also trended down from 15.4% at the end of 2016 to end 2017 at 11.6%. The monetary policy rate has also fallen from 25% to 20%. Senior economics lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Eric Osei-Sibe, commended government for restoring macroeconomic stability in its first year in government.
I think it's remarkable for any government within the first year to be able to achieve all of that. But what we haven't still seen the implementation is the one district, one factory program.
Another challenge which government has not been able to successfully handle is the ballooning of the country's debt stock. Though debt to GDP ratio has declined from 72%, it still remains high at 68.3%.
So long as you are recording budget deficits, there's no way you can reduce your debt because you need to borrow to finance that deficit. So the magnitude of debt, that the size, the stock of it may have increased, but that may not necessarily mean debt unsustainability.
He said managers of the economy must find a way of ensuring that the average lending rate responds to the monetary policy rate and the inflation rate.
Still a very widespread, the wedge between the inflation rate and the nominal interest rate. Although inflation now is heading towards single digit, the average lending rate remains very high. It's not reduced, although we have seen some reduction in the base rates, but the annual percentage rate is still very high.
And quickly moving to the commodities now to look at what to expect or what is really happening on the international market with regards to gold. Spot gold lost some 0.2% there on the world market, and this trickles down to a negative 0.60% there with the current price of $1,312.45 an ounce there for the price of gold. That is cocoa also standing at $1,899. But the interesting one I would want to move to is the barrel of oil, where on the international market we're seeing a barrel at $68.82, and this is seen as the highest as at December 2014. When you compare this is the highest comparing to December 2014 there for the price of oil, and this transcends to 1.53% increase there. And according to COPEC, we should expect some fuel increases with this increase there on the international market, but as how much we should expect, that will be communicated, even though some are trading at 4 Ghana cedis, 46 pesos, and some also trading 4 Ghana cedis, 61 pesos there when it comes to petrol there. Also, the forex market still remains bearish as at January. All three major currencies there, talking about the dollar, the euro, as well as the pound, also depreciating by 0.24% on the forex market. For the dollar to the Ghana cedi, it is standing at 4 Ghana cedis, 41 pesos, and it is being sold to you at 4 Ghana cedis, 42 pesos. For that of the Ghana cedi to the Great British pound, it's 5 Ghana cedis, 97 pesos, and same when it's being sold to you on the interbank market, and to that of the euro, 5 Ghana cedis 26 pesos is what it will be bought at and sold to you at 5 Ghana cedis 27 pesos. But these figures could increase when you move to the forex bureaus. That will be it for the business segment tonight. My name is Nanikia Mensah Bampa. News 360 continues after this. Good evening.
Welcome back to News 360. Thanks very much to Michael Iteje for the very latest in the world of sports. In other news, an Accra High Court has granted bail to the remaining 2 of 5 people, including former National Communications Authority Director General William Tevi, who is standing trial for willfully causing financial loss to the state in a supposed fraudulent procurement deal of a $6 million monitoring equipment. This was after the 2 pleaded not guilty to all the charges preferred against them.
The former Director General of the NCA, William Tevi, and one Nana Owusu's son were on Tuesday, January 9, admitted to a $1 million bail each with 2 sureties. They are to surrender their passports to the court registrar. The Attorney General, Gloria Kufu, and defense lawyers in the trial argued in court about the number of days the case should be heard in a week. While the AG's office was pushing for the case to be heard every working day in a week, lawyers of the accused persons argued for once a week, citing, among other things, the poor health conditions of their client. Resolving the disagreement between the lawyers, the judge, Justice Che Balfour, ruled that the case should be heard twice a week, thus Tuesdays and Thursdays. The judge further asked the AG's office to furnish the defense with all the documents they will rely on to allow for a speedy trial. The 5 are said to have fraudulently withdrawn some $4 million from NCA accounts without justification. After the hearing, the Attorney General, Gloria Kufu, questioned the commitment of the defense lawyers, adding the quicker the case is handled, the better for all parties involved.
We are now beginning with challenges of ill health of 2 of the accused persons. We are having to deal with that. 2, we are having to deal with commitments. Our office is also very busy, but we were prepared to sacrifice everything so that the trial could be heard expeditiously. And I am minded to think that the more expeditiously we handle, the better, even in the interest of the accused persons.
The full trial of the case is set to begin from January 16, 2018.
Now, still on the courts, an Accra High Court has set Monday, January 15 to give the ruling on the bail application by lawyers of the Lebanese national Rabi Haddad, accused of raping his house help at his Airport Hills residence in Accra. A report by TV3 court correspondent Selom Aminya.
This was after lead counsel for the Lebanese, Ralph Opukwe-Dussel, argued the offense his client is being charged with are bailable under the Criminal Offences Act, hence prayed the court to grant the accused bail. State attorneys, however, opposed the bail application, insisting the accused Rabi Haddad currently has no place of abode. They added that he is a foreign national and cannot guarantee his readiness to stay in the country. After hearing the argument of both parties, the court, presided over by Justice Justin Kofi Dogu, set Monday, January 15 to give ruling on the application. However, wife of the accused for the second time broke down in tears at the turn of events. The woman, who could not control herself on Monday, broke down in tears in open court.
Away from the courts, former President Jerry John Rawlings has cautioned those living along the coast to desist from dumping refuse and washing in river bodies. He was of the opinion that consistent dumping could increase waterborne diseases affecting their livelihood and aquatic lives.
How are you? I miss.
Former President Rawlings made observation during a courtesy call on him by officers from Water Resources for Africa and some traditional leaders. Discussions among them focused on spearheading the work of the Water Resources for Africa, which is a new NGO formed in 2017. The Water Resources for Africa is into the construction of boreholes to assist those in the deprived and deplorable communities. Already, the NGO has built some boreholes around the Volta region, but has agreed to increase the construction of the boreholes to 1,000 before the end of this year. It has again earmarked the construction of 10,000 other boreholes in Nigeria and other sub-Saharan African countries. These constructions, according to the Executive Secretary of the NGO, Dr. Donald Senanu, is to help meet the Goal 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals.
When you look at water, right from the billing system to the user, when you look at that supply chain, there is a lot to do when it comes to corruption. And if we can mitigate it from that angle and save the necessary investments there, that alone will be able to provide one borehole elsewhere.
To facilitate their work, the NGO has solicited the assistance of the former President Rawlings.
Irresponsible bad habits. It leads to the multiplying effect of these parasites. And that's an educational exercise I want to embark on. I'm looking for a boat that I can live on the river to educate and to police what's left of that lake.
He again spoke against the indiscriminate dumping of refuse in water bodies.
They are dance, very hygienically conscious. They don't dump things. They don't wash clothes and things in the river. They fetch it because over there, they've had the old culture and the habit of dipping into the river and drinking it straight.
His Royal Majesty for the Igbo community in Ghana, Ize Ihenatu, lauded the former president